is Doug DeMuro, and today I am going to talk about the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. This does not sound like a particularly exciting topic, but I reviewed the Ioniq 5N the other day and I talked about how it's an electric car that has a transmission. Not quite, but they simulate one, and I think that simulation, the feel of that, has changed electric performance cars forever. Forever. And today I'm going to explain why. Today's video is brought to you by Cars and Bids, my online enthusiast car auction site that recently sold this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Okay, so the Ioniq 5N. It has a mode called N mode, that's Hyundai's performance line, where you can put it into N mode and then the car will pop up a tachometer and feel like it's actually shifting gears as you're driving it along. Sound is piped in through the speakers, sound from a combustion engine car, and it feels like it has gears. And it honestly and truly totally feels like it's shifting. And I've told a few people, if you were blindfolded and sitting in this car, you would honestly think that it is a dual clutch car shifting. The only way you can kind of tell that it's not is the piped in sound on the Ioniq 5N specifically comes from the Elantra N because Hyundai wanted to use a car in their family, and it's not exactly the best sound. And frankly, it sounds a little manufactured, but the feel of the shifts, you would absolutely think this is a gas-powered car. This sounds kind of like a gimmick, like it's shifting while it's driving, but it's electric. But it's amazing. In my opinion, amazing. It totally brings back some of the fun that's lost when you have an EV. In most EVs, you just put your foot down. You just put your foot down and whoop, off they go. And here, you can actually downshift and get into the power band like quicker in theory. Probably less efficient actually than a regular EV just driving around. And frankly, you don't need to get into the power band quicker because with an EV, you just put your foot on the accelerator and that sends the signal to the computer, like, let's go all torque. And there's not really a lag with shifting. So it doesn't really have a benefit for efficiency or for performance probably, but it's amazing. Plus, the benefit of this is not just about need. Let's keep in mind that for the last 20 years, car enthusiasts have been mourning the continued decline of the manual transmission. We all know that shiftable automatics, especially dual clutch PDK type automatics, are faster than manual transmission cars, but we all miss the driving engagement from a manual transmission. So I'm sitting in the Ioniq 5N and I'm thinking, well, I can gear down and it's not actually faster, it's not more efficient, but it feels better. Well, isn't that the very same thing from the manual transmission? It's not faster, it's not more efficient than new electric cars, but it's more fun. And that's exactly the situation here. It basically brings the thrill of shifting back to an electric car. So those are kind of the basics. Now, the reason I'm mentioning it here is that I think this innovation totally changes electric cars, electric performance cars, forever. I mean it. In my view, if future brands don't do this, don't basically do the exact thing that Hyundai did, they are totally missing the mark. I think Hyundai has done something that no other EV manufacturer has yet figured out, which is adding back a level of driver engagement that I think most of us were terrified would be completely disappeared from all electric vehicles. And when you think about the brands that are getting into the electric space, you got Porsche, you got Rimac, you got Tesla, soon Lamborghini, Ferrari, Maserati, Bugatti, all of them. They're all kind of trying to focus on driver engagement. And everybody's talking about how EVs of the future won't really drive differently from one another. It's going to be about style of the vehicle or weird features that it has. Well, I think this is a very good example for automakers to distinguish themselves and to bring back some of that engagement and that fun that you're missing by just having a pedal and a battery. And frankly, I think that if all these other enthusiast electric car brands don't come out with this shifting from the Ioniq 5N of all cars, they will be leaving behind probably the best driver engagement technique I've seen in a modern EV. And the scary thing is, I'm not entirely sure they're paying attention to this. All these EV manufacturers are so focused on 0 to 60 times beating 2 seconds, 1.9 seconds, 1.93 seconds, 1.87 seconds, or whatever. I'm not sure they're paying attention to some Hyundai electric crossover that nobody is realistically going to buy, if we're totally honest. But they should be, because as I've said many times, speed has now become common. Whether it's 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds or 3 seconds, it doesn't matter. Anybody can get into a fast EV now for 50 grand. You can lease a fast EV for 500 bucks a month, 400 probably, and just go fast. But the driver engagement component is what's special here, and I think it changes the game. And the sound of this vehicle, it could totally come from anywhere when you think about it. So the Elantra N sound is kind of dumb, and it's kind of electric, but let's say Ferrari comes out with their next electric supercar, which they undoubtedly will soon. Why don't they use the soundtrack from the 275 GTB? They could totally and completely do that. And then suddenly you have this amazing soundtrack. And Hyundai also made the Ioniq 5 like buzzy, like the interior is, it feels like a little bit of an idle to it. The sound is also coming from outside, not just inside, so it kind of completes the experience. Like, it has all of these touches that really give it kind of the feel of a gas-powered sports car that you're shifting gears with. And when I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I drove the Rimac Navara, you floor it, it goes. I drove the Model S Plaid, you floor it, it goes. There's nothing really distinguishing those cars, aside from the Navara looks cool. The Plaid has 4 doors, like that's cool. The really distinguishing feature is something like this. And amazingly, it was Hyundai who dreamed it all up. So that's what I want to say. That's why I'm here, that's what I'm talking about. And I've noticed some similar comments from some of my colleagues. Just how fun it is to drive this Ioniq 5N because of this transmission shifting thing. There's a lot to like about electric cars, and I've had a lot of fun driving electric cars over the last however many years since they've come out. But they're certainly not as engaging as gas-powered cars, especially gas cars with transmissions and engine sound and all that. You can't really enjoy them quite as much, even the high-performance electric cars. This has me less worried about the EV revolution. For the very first time since the Nissan Leaf came out in 2012, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is something that I, as an enthusiast, could get behind, could purchase, could own, could use, because it now feels like I'm engaging with the car in a way that other electric vehicles have basically kind of removed you from. And it's really amazing. Frankly, if you like the Volkswagen Golf R with a DSG, the dual clutch shifter, you have to love this. Now, I will admit that this Ioniq 5N situation is not a manual transmission. The old school foot clutch, shift with a pattern kind of thing, I don't know if they're going to realistically be able to replicate that in an electric vehicle. I'm not really sure if that comes back. But this gives me hope. A lot of enthusiasts have embraced dual clutch and paddle shifters. And I really think the Ioniq 5N is basically on the mark of some of the better paddle shift cars in terms of the way that feels. And you can see where the potential of this goes. Yes, it would be cool if someone came out, now that this is possible, shifting gears with a pedal operated clutch and a real, gear shift. And maybe you wouldn't be able to pop the clutch or rev the engine or whatever, but you could see how they could maybe do that. But even if we don't get to that point, I already feel like, hey, we're in a better place of driver engagement just because this feature is out. And again, I sincerely hope that other car brands figure it out, realize how special it is, and figure it out and adopt it as well. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to make a video specifically calling out this tremendously impressive feature because it is just so impressive. And I know a lot of car industry people watch my videos, and I'm not sure that they will necessarily watch the Ioniq 5N review because it's not going to get that many views. It's a rather obscure car. The Ioniq 5 has been popular, but the N version really isn't going to be. I think it's not going to sell that well. But this feature should be the thing that car births. From a tiny little car that isn't really going to be a big hit, it should birth like a revolution in the performance car EV segment. I'm like ready to actually say that. And again, it's really excellent. I hope to see it in more performance EVs soon. And I really think that this is the beginning of the breakthrough necessary to make car enthusiasts stop being like blanket EV haters. So many car enthusiasts, so many forums and Facebook posts, I'll never have an EV. Drive this, and I think it adds some of that gas-powered car enjoyment back into an electric car. And it's just really impressive. I'm thrilled they did it, and I really hope other automakers follow suit.